Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about the very best tabletop role-playing game that was published in week 3 of May 2019. And that tabletop role-playing game, it's a core rulebook. It's a brand new freestanding tabletop role-playing game core rulebook, not a source book. And that's why I choose it as the best new tabletop role-playing game. Is the Expanse role-playing game. So this is a role-playing game, a tabletop role-playing game created on the Expanse intellectual property. So this is a licensed property, and licensed property are very, very important to the tabletop role-playing game community. And I think we're going to see an increase in the tabletop role-playing game communities, the importance of licensed properties to games. And essentially, I don't know, I'm a huge fan of Mad Men. I watched the entire Mad Men series. Absolutely love that show. Really, really wonderful show. Don Draper's the Mac. That show was awesome. In that show, you learned a lot about advertising, specifically about advertising firms. And advertising firms, they needed a car company or they needed an airline. Okay? And actually, airlines were more dramatic than car companies. But if you landed Ford, man, your joint was set, right? You know what I mean? And so this is becoming a very big deal in tabletop role-playing games, where if you're a studio, if you're a tabletop role-playing game studio, if you're a game house, if you're a company that creates tabletop role-playing games, you're going to have to get, I think, going forward, licensed properties are absolutely an indicator of success within the industry, right? And so who has this awesome licensed property for the Expanse RPG? That is Green Ronin. Green Ronin is really distinguishing themselves within the tabletop role-playing game, within tabletop role-playing games overall. The companies, they are really, really distinguishing themselves very, very well. One, they have created multiple adventures directly for Dungeons & Dragons. Dungeons & Dragons has started to outsource creations of its adventures. These are official Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition adventures have been created by Green Ronin. Green Ronin also has done other IPs previously. Green Ronin created Dragon's Age, and now they have the Expanse. The Expanse, which is so. What is the Expanse exactly? Let's talk about that IP a little bit. So the Expanse is. Let's just talk about the overall company structure of the Expanse as a product, right? So the Expanse is specifically, it is a series of, it is a series specifically of hard sci-fi, right? So this is a hard sci-fi series, and basically it is a series of novels, and it also exists on Sci-Fi. So Sci-Fi has had Expanse for a little while. It may have gone over to another company, or it's still with Sci-Fi, one or the other. It's actually going into a 4th season, and it's been a successful, air quotes, television show. It's very hard to actually gauge the success of a television show. Perfect example of this is I'm a big fan of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Brooklyn Nine-Nine was canceled. That's not a sign of success. But then they were immediately picked up. Is that a sign of success? And Sci-Fi is the same, and Expanse is exactly the same thing. They have an ongoing show. I think it's continuing right now, but the reality is but it's not knocking the ratings out of the park, right? So, but even having a television show today, that's a great indicator of success for your company overall, right? So the Expanse from a product perspective, from an intellectual property perspective, really, really interesting, all right? Now, what exactly is the story of the Expanse? Well, the Expanse is done by James S.A. Corey. He's a novelist, and he has written the Expanse. The Expanse is a hard sci-fi series of books, right? And when I say hard sci-fi, I mean like the physics of space. Like there's no teleporting in this. There's no faster than light travel in this. This is like, tin can, Apollo 13, spaceships, but about 200-300 years from now. So, this is the kind of sci-fi that cares if your space station is spinning to create gravity. That's a a lot of people, when they play tabletop role-playing games, they'll go, oh, I won't play a tabletop role-playing game that doesn't tell you how many hit points you lose from fall damage. You know, that's an indicator. Same thing for hard sci-fi. If your space colony, if your space station has to spin so that gravity is created, that's a good indicator that this is hard sci-fi. People want this to be as close as possible to emulating actual real space physics. They care about, how many dollars does it cost to get a payload into space. If you're watching Star Trek, they're like, oh yeah, we just make food in the replicator. All the economics are out the window. Science attached to Star Trek is pretty laughable. Like you got Q, like he's literally a god in that show. Like they feign the idea that science is attached to Star Trek, but Star Trek is pretty space opera-y, right? This is not. The Expanse is very hardcore sci-fi. This is what 200-300 years from now. What is the extrapolation of human space travel, right? There's really no aliens in the Expanse, so it's just humans, right? Colonizing our own solar system, okay? So let's talk about that. What are the factions within the Expanse IP? The factions within the Expanse IP it's really strong. The factions are excellent. It's Martians, people who have colonized Mars, Earthers, like the most richest, dopest people, in the solar system. Earth is still like a gem, and the richest people live there. They're almost like England, like their politics are really strong, and they have influence all over the galaxy. You know what I mean? And then finally, so you have the Martians who are struggling to for independence, and actually to keep their independence, to be independent, to not have the thumb of power over them from Earth. Earthers who are trying to keep their wealth and have power over the other factions, including Martians. And then the last faction is Belters, and Belters are really fascinating. These are people who are born, live, and die on spaceships, right? So these are people who are Belters, are miners. They get minerals out of asteroids. They carry goods from one planet to the next. And all of these factions are all human, right? And the Expanse's stories about their battles, their frictions, their politics, right? It is a really phenomenally strong, and I've read the books, and I really love the books, and I'm an okay fan of the show. Just so you're aware, I think the show does a phenomenal job of bringing the books to life, but I have struggled to watch it all only because, and it has nothing to do with, actually, I don't watch the Expanse show, because it makes me so sad. So I'm just going to get into this real quick. I am just really, really into space travel, but we're so, we can't even go to the moon right now. It should be a cab ride. It should be like taking a cab to get to the moon today. We did it in 1969, and arguably, we are less capable of getting to the moon in 2019 than we were in 1969. And so when I watch this show that is really all about real space travel, that's why I stopped. I was watching it, and I saw this one scene where they were having a spaceship battle, and they were using slug throwers and and all the physics, and I literally got upset that we were so far away from actual space travel, and that Americans and the rest of the world care, and especially politicians, care so little about space travel that it's very unlikely I'm ever going to be on Mars, or even my grandchildren will be on Mars. And that makes me sad. So that's the only reason I haven't watched the show. The Expanse tabletop role-playing game is huge that Green Ronin won this specific IP, this intellectual property, and the game using the age system. So Green Ronin has their own system rules setting. So this is a rule setting that is so strong, multiple games have been based on it. Modern Age is based on it. Fantasy Age is based on it. Will Wheaton was connected to something called Titan's Fall, which was another world that ran with the Age system, to my knowledge. And so the Age system is the adventure gaming engine, and this is Green Ronin's own in-house system rules setting, right? Actually, yeah. And so basically, it is a set of rules that you can use to run different worlds from, and they have, right? And these are great. These are really, really powerful within the tabletop role-playing game industry, the fact that these exist, and I'm really glad Green Ronin's is continuing to grow out, and the Expanse RPG should generate some money for Green Ronin to continue to uphold really, really strong quality. I think Green Ronin products have excellent quality. They really care a lot about the core. What are the core things when you make a tabletop role-playing game? You have got to create amazing layout, amazing art, and amazing writing now, and also amazing rules design, right? So, because the reality is, it's a great point. Like, Age has got to be a strong rule system. In this particular case, Green Ronin really didn't need to deal with the world. The world has been proven successful by a successful series of books, proven successful by a successful television show, and so the story is on point, but they've got to deliver with art and layout. And this game has it. It's really well written. The art is excellent. So I think this is really it's great. So who does this serve, right? So this is great for the industry that we have another powerful IP saying we want a tabletop role-playing game attached to our product. Tabletop role-playing games are dangerous to intellectual properties because they invite other people to create stories within your world. And the moment you do that, you are giving them some ownership, right? And it becomes a little not super clear who owns what, right? OCs, original characters, right? Who owns, a character created in some... Who would own an awesome story that was created and streamed using the Expanse RPG, right? You could tell a story that's better than what they just told in season 3. Who owns that? It's a little murky. It's really a little murky. So when I see big intellectual properties coming and saying, we want a tabletop role-playing game attached to our intellectual property, that is fantastic for the entire industry. This is great for the community because there are not a lot of hard sci-fi worlds that get a lot of traction, and so it's great for our tabletop role-playing game community to have a really solid, high-quality way to tell hard sci-fi stories. That is fantastic. What does this do for players and game masters? Well, because it's being created by Green Ronin, you're getting top quality, very professional grade art, layout, writing, and rules design. So this is a great game. It's great for everybody and everyone. This is a win-win-win all around. I'm really excited to see this game, and this is absolutely the very best new freestanding tabletop core rulebook that was published specifically within week 3 of May 2019. It is the Expanse RPG by Green Ronin. Check it out. Also, of course, that's my opinion on the game. I'd love to hear your opinion on the game. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.